Hey guys. First of all, yeah, K-pop Demon Hunters. I don't know if Melanie is here, but Preston is a very big fan of it. Yeah, this changed my life. It's awesome. The soundtrack is awesome. And my daughter is a very big fan of it, so shout out to Daphne. Yeah, to be a bit more serious, very happy to be here with you guys at EmberFest once again. Always a pleasure to see all your faces. This small lightning talk, because it's going to be very small, is just to show you guys a little tool that we use in our code base, because we do render very long lists, very long lists of lines that are not very optimized as far as render time is concerned. So we've tried several stuff, but we need the entire list to be rendered on the page because our users are using the Command F or Ctrl+F feature of the browser to find and search the page. So we want the entire list to be on the page, but it takes seconds to render some of our pages. And the idea we've come up with is to incrementally render this list so that the page gets reactive fast. We navigate from route to route in a matter of milliseconds. And then the list renders incrementally, but the user does not really realize this, and they can still use the feature Command F. So I use the to-do list, the to-do MVC that Kristen showed us this morning to give a very small demo. This one is working like you'd expect. And if you go to the Performance tab and load this, you will see that here, is it big enough? Yes, I think it is. You see the performance mark to-do item. So it's only showing us when a to-do item is entered, there's a modifier on the to-do item. Let's have a look at this. This is the source code. All right. So we've got this mark modifier here, and the only thing it does is when the li element is inserted in the DOM, it marks in the browser. The to-do list component loops on the to-dos. That's very simple. What we've come up with is this little incremental list helper that's implemented with Ember resources. I'll show you the source code a little bit after. Okay, let's, I don't know if I can do this. All right. Now this is going to do more or less the same. And I'm just going to do a to-do list. The API is not perfect, but it works for us. And this is doing one item at a time. And the list is incremental. So when you look at it, you can see that it's taking time. This is not perfect. Obviously, using one item at a time is not the ideal UX you want to give to your users. But you can choose. You can choose to render 10 items at a time, 20, whatever. This is for the example. And when you look at the performance there, you can see now that at the bottom, you can see the list being incremented by the screenshots. And you have the to-do item here. I'm going to just throw this there. And now the to-do items are incrementally placed, and you see all the rendering stuff, the insert stuff, and the rendering stuff. So if you sum up all the time it takes to render the entire list, this is more than the time it takes to render without the incremental list. But if the list is long to render, with this implementation, with this solution, you get the UI first very fast, whatever the time it takes to render the entire list afterwards. So if you want to have and the idea was to have an API that's only a wrapper around the each argument, the argument you give to the each loop. So pretty easy to migrate one each to one using the incremental list. And the way it is implemented is not that big. It uses Ember resources from our great Preston. And it uses the requestAnimationFrame to run a loop. Takes the items list, takes the chunk size you want to render your list with, eventually some options that you want to, a callback that you want to run at the end of the rendering phase. And then you've got this little loop, and it returns the resource. There's a little tricky part in terms of tests, because in your rendering test, you probably don't need this incremental rendering, or you want to have your tests be aware that the list has finally rendered before giving the rest of the test the possibility to run. But it loops, it starts the loop, and obviously at the end, it cleans it up and it cancels the animation frame. And what the loop does is pretty easy. It creates a cell. Actually, the cell is created a bit before. The cell is a reactive value that Ember Resources gives us. And it loops through the items array with a chunk size. And if the next batch is empty, it means you've finally iterated the entire original list, stops everything. And if the next batch is not empty, well, then it calls requestAnimationFrame, sets the new array with the previous values and the next batch, and runs a second requestAnimationFrame loop. That's I'm going to have a hard time explaining why I need a second one here, but anyways. And the idea is that this requestAnimationFrame API from the browser makes sure that your browser stays reactive. So even if the browser is still rendering expensive items on the browser, you can still scroll, you can click on links and navigate somewhere else in your app. So it's been working pretty well for us. It's not perfect, obviously, and what we tend to do is also improve the render time of each line. That takes time. But as a very low-hanging fruit gain, and since we have many long lists on our application, this is a small implementation and a good tool to use. And maybe one last word. We've talked today about how Ember could be more attractive, should be more attractive. And maybe we're not tackling this issue the right way. So we could maybe advertise Ember. I don't know if you guys see, but this could be a way to gain attractivity. There it is. Shout out to Mate. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much.